Hello guys, in this video today I am going to talk about how and when to water your succulents so they can last a long time in your planting family. I am going to focus in three key main points, which are the soil, the pot material, and of course the watering methods themselves. Let's start with the soil. The soil is important no matter what kind of plant you have, and succulents are not an exception. So for succulents at least, we need a really well-draining soil, and this is why a lot of plant parents tend to use the cacti succulent soil mix, because this provides them with a good drainage when we are going to water the plants. Now, if you want to mix your own soil, make your own soil mix, then you can do this by adding some perlite, gravel, sand, and other materials that give air to the soil. But keep in mind that if you use, for example, gravel or sand, these do not provide nutrients to the plants. So you have to consider this and change your fertilizing schedule accordingly. You can do a lot of things with your soil mixes as long as the drainage is proper, then you shouldn't have problem. For example, some people like to use bonsai soil mixes, like putting some macadama or kanuma soil inside their soil mixes, and I haven't really seen them that much in the soaps. These two types of soil, the kanuma and the akadama, they are actually kind of rocks. But recently they are popping out everywhere in all the local shops, so I think that they will be available at your region as well. They are mostly used in the Japanese and Asian countries. They are kind of new to Europe, but I think that you can find them. Years before, you had to actually find a shop that was specialized in bonsai to find these types, but nowadays you can find them almost everywhere. So that is all for the soil. We just need to have the proper drainage and the nutrients for our plants in order to help them grow healthy and happy. Now to the pot materials, and I am leaving the water methods at the end because they are really important, and I want to give them the weight that they deserve. For the material pots, we need to have some reminders in mind. Succulents really like drainage, so that means that a pot that can breathe is really good. For example, terracotta pots are really porous as a material, so they can help drive the moisture out of the soil, out to the environment. In contrast, the plastic, porcelain, glass pots, they are not porous, so they will not help drive the moisture out of the pot. They will instead keep it inside. That is why we tend to use these kind of pots for more tropic plants. And the succulents have the tradition of getting a terracotta pot. That doesn't mean that you can't have your succulent in a different kind of pot, like a plastic pot or a glass vase or something. This just means that you will have to change your habits, your watering methods accordingly. And now that we are done with all the pot materials and the soil mixes and everything, we are ready to move on to how to identify a succulent that needs to be watered and the three methods that I tend to use and when to use them. Okay, first of all, let's take for example this little jade plant. As you can see, a lot of the leaves are wrinkly. This means that it is severely underwatered. The leaves should be plump. That is why we call them succulents, because they need to be succulents. Plump leaves, juicy leaves. The leaves that are wrinkly mean dehydration. And also you can check the soil. This soil is way dry. This jade plant, on the other hand, doesn't seem to have as dry soil as the other one had. And if I stick my finger here, you can see that it comes out with a little bit of soil. That means that we have some moisture. Also, if we check the leaves, they have no wrinkles. From the bottom to the top, nothing is wrinkly. Everything is plump, strong, not squeezy, and healthy. For other plants like this one, you can also see that if they need to be watered, they will become wrinkly and squeezy. This one doesn't need to be watered. And let me do the soil test. Again, some soil comes out. There are 3 main methods that you can use to water your succulents. And the most common one is the normal traditional watering method, which is we take a draining tray, something to hold the excess water. We take our plant and our water here, and we simply water the plant like this and let the excess water drain. If your soil is completely dry and hydrophobic, that means that when you just put water like this, oopsie, the water will run, especially from the sides and out of the pot. It will not saturate the soil completely, which means that not all of the roots will get the water that they need. What you can do in this situation is keep watering your plant, and I mean a lot of watering, like water it, let it breathe, and water again, and again and again and again, so you can be sure that the whole soil is wet. Otherwise, you can do the second method, and this is to leave in a container with water the pot in order to let it soak the water itself. Now keep in mind that if you have a soil mix with a lot of gravel and sand and perlite, the water will take a little longer to go up than it will take with the normal cactus soil mix or something, or even garden soil. Yes, they can survive in garden soil. The possibilities are not that high depending on the type of garden soil that you have, so better use the soil mixes that I've mentioned earlier. Now this is the second watering method. You just put a lot of water here at the container, then leave it till you can see that the soil, the mix, is kind of wet. You can check again, or just count like 15 minutes, 30 minutes, 1 hour, it depends. Sometimes I even leave my plants to 2 hours, but never leave a plant to sit in water, because this way they can't breathe and they will rot. So let this little plant get the water that it needs, and let's move on to the third and the last method of watering, which is the submerging. I wouldn't actually suggest to use this in plants like the bear spore, something that is fluffy. They tend to hate water, but for plants, for succulents like this, you can really do this. You just put it underwater and wait for the bubbles to stop. The bubbles are the trapped air in the soil. So we just keep it here for some time and then it is ready. Keep in mind that when using the submerging method, I really strongly recommend that you will put your plant afterwards in a really airy place with a lot of airflow. Because if they are like this one and you don't have enough airflow so they can dry properly, and especially inside the ground, then you run the risk of getting rot on their leaves. Also, when watering from the top, you should Still be careful about not wetting their leaves. They don't really need any water on their leaves. But in a case that you just accidentally pour some water on their leaves, don't be so afraid. It is not a thriller movie. They will dry and they will be fine. I don't want this to happen every time that you water them. This is where the problems get created. Now, they can survive in a little rain as well. For example, my family has a lot of succulents at the garden and sometimes it rains. And guess what? The crown has water inside and it looks beautiful. But that doesn't mean that you should do it in purpose over and over and over again. This is where the problems start happening. And I want to stress out something about the pots. I always recommend to use pots that have draining holes because this can help the moisture, the excess water run out, and then you will be safe. But if you have a plant or a propagation or something that is in a vase, like this, in a kind of glass, drinking glass, bowl or something, then what you can do to water them properly without them rotting, something that works for me at least, is again take your plant, water it from the top as you would, normally. Wait for it to drink the water. And when the plant is done drinking the water and you have some water left, you should never leave this water inside a container that has no draining. You see, no drainage. So what you can do is just tilt it and put it somewhere, for example your sink or somewhere in the garden. Tilt it horizontally like this, and help it drain this way. And this way you won't have any rot even if you have no drainage holes. And this can work with a lot of plants. But still keep in mind that no holes here mean that the only source of oxygen comes from here, from the top. So you still have some chances of getting root rot, but not that much if you use this method. The upside method, I call it. The upside. Just don't destroy your plants trying to put them upside down. So, a quick recap. For soil, we need something with a really good drainage. For pots, we need something that is porous, that is not limiting. We can use everything, but the more porous the pot, the easier it is for it to dry the soil out, so you can avoid overwater. And when watering your succulents, you have to choose between three methods: the water from top, the bottom water, which can be better because you will not wet the leaves, but it can take a little longer. And the third method is the submerged method that we can use in succulents that are really hardy and strong, if of course we can provide them with the right amount of airflow so they can dry later in the day. And by the way, the earlier that we can water our plants in the day, the better it is, because they have a lot of hours in front of them, so they can dry out properly and use this water well. If you water them really late at night, they can't use this water that well, so they will not be able to dry out as fast as they need, and then you run the risk of getting some rot and some mold here and there. I hope that this video is helpful and that you now have a clear image on what you need to do in order to help your little succulent survive. Happy and healthy growing, everyone!